Joining us now on the line is our good friend Bret, anchor of Special Report on the Fox News Channel, weekdays at 6 o'clock. One of the best shows on television. Sure. If you want to know what's going on in the world, you got to be watching Special Report. Good morning to you, Bret.
Good morning.
Listen, I want to start off by talking about this hack attack against Sony, which we all laughed at and thought was pretty funny when we were just reading some embarrassing emails. But it turned ugly when they started threatening theater owners, and then Sony had to pull the movie. It is an act of cyber warfare, and here's what Josh Earnest said about it yesterday in the White House briefing room, that we need to respond, but in an appropriate, proportional way.
As we would be in any scenario, sort of strategic scenario like this, they would be mindful of the fact that we need a proportional response.
So what is a proportional response in this case? I mean, it's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, listen, we've still had some issues about where is the line in deciding what is cyber war, what is an act of war when it comes to cyber terrorism. We're going to have to determine that pretty quickly because there's a lot of it that's happening every day, according to intelligence officials. Listen, who knows? We may have already responded. I mean, the NSA has a whole cyber defense side of the operation that is counteroffensive as well. But for the administration, I think today is going to be the day that they point the finger directly at North Korea. You have the president's end-of-the-year news conference at 1:30 today, and I expect this to be a big part of that.
Well, it was pointed out by somebody, and I think the American Enterprise Institute made a note of the fact that if Sony had dropped a bomb on the Sony studios and done $100 million worth of damage, we would consider it.
Yeah, it's economic warfare.
That would be war. Right. This is economic warfare.
Right. Yeah, no, that's true. And Steve knows well these companies are getting bombarded, and every day. I mean, I just talked to the outgoing vice chairman of the Senate Intel Committee, Saxby Chambliss from Georgia. He's retiring. He said what keeps him up at night is lone wolf ISIS terrorists in the U.S. who are inspired by ISIS, and two, this cyber terrorism, cyber war that is happening. In 2013, he said government facilities were attacked 1 million times a day.
Wow.
1 million times a day.
Wow. So, Bret, can I shift this conversation a little bit to Cuba, because I am totally surprised and shocked by this decision. It seems like this president doesn't know who our friends are and who our enemies are. It seems to me that this is a president who now says he wants to open up relations and trade with Cuba. At the same time, he doesn't want to have trade deals with a lot of of our allies. What is going on here? What is there a political motivation behind this? Is he trying to change the subject?
Well, Steve, he's talked about this and a want and need to do this for a while. I mean, to his credit, he came in saying that he wanted to change the dynamic with Cuba, and he has slowly, changed the travel, he's changed the remittance policy, and now he's kind of opened the door fully. He obviously doesn't have the authority to lift the embargo because Congress has to do that, but he's doing about everything else. I think it's about something that he wanted to do, believes that the 5 decades hasn't worked of the embargo, and the thing that I think critics hit on that rings most true to most people is, what did we get out of it?
Right.
What exactly is going to happen in return for all this? And I don't know that there's a lot of trust, especially in South Florida, of the Castro brothers coming through with their end of the bargain.
Yeah, but politically, I've been surprised about some of the people who have popped their heads up and said that they think they agree with the president, most notably Rand Paul, Marco Rubio, of course, of Cuban descent from Florida. He's very much against it. Are you surprised by some of the folks who have been supportive of the president on this?
Yeah. I mean, Rand Paul, obviously, you could see where that might fit in with some of the other things he's talked about. I mean, I thought it was interesting that Senator Rubio said Rand Paul doesn't know what he's talking about yesterday. I also have seen, the critics, Senator Bob Menendez standing very firmly with Senator Rubio. And I think it does. It's one of these issues that splits Capitol Hill. I don't think it's going to be easy for the administration to get Congress to lift the embargo fully.
Where are the Cuban Americans? You know, they are such a critical vote in Florida. Some people think that George W. Bush might not have been president if it hadn't been for the Cuban vote. Where are they today in their thinking about relationships with Castro and Cuba?
Well, you know, Steve, everything we can tell down there in South Florida is that, you know, the older Cuban Americans are just absolutely appalled by this.
Right.
And just out and vocal, and there's people in the streets with megaphones. The younger generation that doesn't have the history of the revolution and all that, the oppression, they've only heard stories of it, they are more apt to go with let's open the doors. And it's also important to point out that the demographic in Florida has changed. I mean, the Cuban-American vote is still significant, but it's less so. Puerto Ricans and other minorities are making up more of that vote.
You point out that the president, who's about to go off to Hawaii for a long vacation, is holding his end-of-year press conference, his 173rd press availability, as I'm told, by Mark Knoller over at CBS News, who keeps track of these things. But what do you...
Thank God for Mark Knoller.
Yeah, he is amazing. He's a fount of knowledge, isn't he? All right, so but here's my question. What else are we going to hear? This guy's been full of surprises. Every day he's got some surprise up his sleeve.
Is he going to take credit for the fall in the gasoline price?
I don't know. But I tell you, that has changed the dynamic around the world.
It sure has.
Steve, I mean, boy, you talk about one thing that changed the economic scenario of a number of world powers. That's it.
Yep.
I think a lot of focus is going to be Sony, North Korea. I bet you'll get some questions on Cuba, and you know this torture report and the fallout from all of that. Remember, we still have big items. Iran. What is going to happen with this negotiation with Iran? ISIS, where are we on dropping bombs and killing ISIS leaders in Syria and Iraq? There's a lot of questions to ask.
All right. What's the holiday plans there, Bret?
Yeah, I'm taking off for Naples, Florida, and I'll be gone for Christmas and New Year's, hopefully.
Have a merry one.
Well, Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Merry Christmas to you and yours, too.